Hello, good morning, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Asuri Balde. We are back again on another edition. As you know, this program, we discuss a lot of things. I mean, we do a lot of things here, very important discussions. Of course, if you know our newspaper review guests, sometimes they are very agile to review the papers. Am I right to say very agile to review the newspapers?
You can. I mean, people use the phrase agile now.
You know.
Not just now, for the last 15, 20 years, it kind of means something slightly different. So yes, you can use it.
Exactly.
It's a cliche now.
It's a cliche.
So they are always willing, ready.
To be agile.
I mean, review the newspapers with us. But today we will go extra mile. The centenary of Sir Dawda Jawara.
Of his birth, centenary of his birth.
Exactly. The centenary of his birth. And of course, we will be taking a look at some of the achievements, you know, since he assumed office as Prime Minister, then metamorphose. So I said metamorphose.
And you said it right.
To metamorphose to the President of the Republic of the Gambia. On the platform, I'm with Julde Njai. My lady is rocking Sunjata.
The Jufure brand.
The Jufure brand. Only rich people wear this brand.
Wow. I don't know about that. I'm not rich, but yeah, your girl is in Jufure this morning.
She's wealthy. So how are you doing?
I am fine, Balde. Good morning to you. Good morning, Mr. Ade, and to our viewers from wherever you're watching us. It's good to be back on this platform. Like we always do, we rock it, like from the Gambia to international affairs. And yeah, this morning we are rocking the Gambia and we are celebrating a legend who contributed so much towards the development, not just the Gambia, but the sub-region.
And we could say the continent in terms of his involvement with the African Union and so on.
Yeah.
So not just the sub-region.
The war.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll be taking a look at all those things. I mean, it's important sometimes for us to reflect. I mean, sometimes, you know, legends will go. We call them our fallen heroes. But at some point, you know, their legacy remains. I mean, it's important for us to be talking about it. And Mr. Adedrame will at least try to broaden this discussion here in the studios of Kairaba with QTV.
I will try. I will try. He was something of a hero of mine, politically anyway. Not that I'm not one of these people that just because you're my hero, I don't see your faults as well. He was human, and he had his faults, and I think we can't sort of brush those under the carpet. We should mention them as well, because it shows that he was a human being, and like all human beings, we have our pluses and our minuses, but I think his pluses far outweigh his minuses.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the code, Julde. And you know, you said it's a bit
Julde
fascinating.
seems to like this one.
He seems to like
What
it.
does it say about
She read it.
It reads, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
Julde,
straightforward,
you obviously have to be the first one to have a first go at this one. You can't say, oh, I'm leaving it to you guys. Not this time. Not this time.
There is a saying that behind every successful man, there is a woman. And wherever you see a man who is successful, there is always a woman who is not just behind, but in front, on the sides to guide him through, to mold him and to make him a better president.
Only the successful ones. What about the unsuccessful ones?
It's their fault. It's not our fault.
You see, when they are successful,
then
it's the woman.
You know,
when they are not successful, it's the failure of the man.
it's like when you hear some people defending a president of any country. All the successes they attribute to the president. All the failures they attribute to his ministers and everybody else, not that particular president. So it sounds like this is what I'm hearing here about successful men. But there are lots of unsuccessful men. I guess they don't have women. But anyway, carry on, Julie.
So yeah, Mr. Ade, I think I pretty much like this proverb this morning. It's evident, I mean, looking at our political landscape in the country, in most cases, you hear even them, politicians, saying that if you want to get things done, involve women, you know, at the grassroots, in politics, in campaigns, they get things done. you know, whilst men are just there to talk.
Are they sincere when they say that? Because I say
that's
this when
that's where the problem is.
Well, this is it, because they might say it, but do they mean it? Because if you look at our National Assembly, there are hardly any women there, and it's one of the lowest in Africa.
Yeah.
So you know, if men are saying that, oh, you know, that they think that women should be there to make these decisions and take the country forward, then that should be represented in political representation, and yet it's not really, not in the Gambia.
It's unfortunate, really, that despite the fact that women are contributing so much towards politics, towards Gambia's development, they're still lacking behind. I think it's up to women at some point to really know their worth and take up the mantle of leadership, because if you can trust me with your campaign, to be your campaign manager, to be your campaign, to, you know, go around, scout votes for you, if you can trust me with such a position to be able to make you win, I mean, why can't you trust me to be in that position, leadership position?
Yeah.
So really, it's up to the woman at the end of the day. If you know that we are that powerful, why can't we take ownership of the things rather than just allowing people to control us or ask us to do things and then we wake up to do it? I think it's up to us right now, because we know our worth. In 2016, 2021 presidential elections, we've seen women and youths, they constitute the highest number of people who voted during these elections, and even the parliamentary elections. So it goes to show that the contribution of women in Gambian politics, not just that, but if you go around the market early in the morning, as early as 6, as early as 5 a.m., you see women, you know, carrying their buckets, going to the market, you know, carrying their goods and all of that. It goes to show that they have a huge role to play as far as Gambia is concerned. And most of the homes in this country, if you ask them, they will be like, my mom is the one who is supporting me. Most of these big men, if you have a conversation with them, a sincere one, I mean.
We'll come back to you, Julde. You're watching QTV this morning, and of course, the program is sponsored by Lido Olinda Tea Cow Milk, and of course, you know, we have the Olinda Tea, which is a very good start for the morning. But we'll take a short break. After the break, we'll be right back.
G Network. Experience speeds like never before with our new 5G Rocket Fixed Internet plan. Get speeds from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. Your 5G-enabled devices. Walk into QCell headquarters to get one of our 5G routers and experience the true feeling of 5G. Only with QCell. QCell brings you the future. Tech, innovation, incredible speed. The future is now. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyabus. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
QCell moy suñu boss. QCell moy suñu boss. QCell moy suñu boss. Go, ebe Dawda full network suda tili QCell. Ni lafta diamla wati jamala mune diata QCell. Most reliable network dumala geta wati QCell. Wo quality man nyon soda jam ona manke QCell. Hanibe wulo ni farole kono walante be bako na jala fayola network ko se taria QCell suñu boss. Yo finjeka indi 3G ñu delu taxi 4G plus, and now we bring you 5G. 5G. First and only 5G provider. Tell her follow Adi Doron Nessa Keno. Gambia Bela Nyon Tower Fele QCell. Ko Fasun Tower Buka Busi QCell. Tell them multi milka kukutol Nati Gambia QCell made a lori la Kiliano Yele Imanina Amanda Wala Itella quality dealer Daddy Ma Itelle Silo Wala Wodol Mume Be Kenoma. QCell Sunibus QCell Sunibus QCell Sunibus QCell Sunibus. One next son of a Bambandi QCell Sunibus. QCell most innovative QCell Sunibus.
You
asked for it, and QCell is giving it to you with our new and improved Sunyu Bundle Mega Promo. Now you can get more data at cheaper prices. Buy any of our bundle packages and enjoy massive discounts. Dial *303# and enjoy browsing on the network with the biggest coverage. Buy a 20 megabytes data bundle for as low as $7 and 50 bottles today, or purchase bigger bundles up to 20 gigabytes. Yes, that's right, 20 gigabytes of data at your fingertips. With our mega promo bundles, you can browse more, chat longer, and stay connected on the go, anytime, anywhere. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell. We innovate. Orders follow. Terms and conditions.
We're back. You're watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Asori Balde. Just to remind you, if you want the pure 5G, it's QCell Sunyubus. We are the providers, we are the innovators, and of course, all the time we give you whatever you want when it comes to technology. Tomorrow's technology today, we don't play with it. If you want the fastest internet, my dear, get that number 3 or the number 5. It's the best network for you. And you will be surprised to know we are expanding our networks. Wherever you are in this country, you should be able to access the QCell network, even if you are in a valley.
In fact, you said that you will be surprised to know. I think because we're always innovating and always expanding, they won't be surprised.
They won't be surprised.
They will not be surprised.
So we need to change our slogan to is no need to be surprised. No need to be surprised anymore.
Exactly. Expect innovation from us.
Expect innovation.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we want to make sure communication is affordable to every person living in this country. Internet is your right. Access to internet, fast internet is your right. So QCell is providing that for you. Yeah. Go get that number 3 or the number 5. Now let's proceed. Julde, connect the dots.
So connecting the dot requires multitasking, and women are very good at that. So like I was saying, we play a very pivotal role, in all phases of life, and we should not be left behind as far as, these things are concerned. But, you can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to really drink. So it is left to us.
Who's the horse that's being taken and not being forced this time?
Who is on the horse?
That particular analogy.
No, I mean, the horse.
Which horse is not going to be forced
The women,
to drink?
we over the years, we hear all these advocates about women empowerment, gender equity, equality, and all of that. But really, I think it is up to us at the end of the day to really lead some of these things. We can't just allow men to Bali is looking like Julde. Are you a feminist?
No, I want to know where she's going. She is landing.
Yes, you've taken off. Where you landing?
Yeah. So really, on a more serious note, Mr. Ade, it's important really to us for women now to start leading. We've seen that for far too long. Politicians, men are saying, okay, gender equality and all of that, women representation. But is that really true at the end of the day? It's not true. It's just, they're just talking and no action whatsoever. So it's left for the women to really champion this cause and then believe in it. It's one thing to talk, but it's another to believe in what you are saying.
But is it not a case that men don't want to give up their position? It's very patriarchal society.
It is.
Men want, you'll say women should be leading, but are they even being allowed the space to lead?
I think they are insecure.
Yeah, I mean, so you have to do it. But it's an interesting one. And when you were reading the quote, it took me back to some of the experiments that they did in the 1950s and 1960s, where they would have boys and girls in a class. And the boys would be the loud ones. They dominate everything. But it didn't mean that they were the ones coming up with the sensible suggestions. And when they would give them experiments, the girls would go away quietly and do it, and they'd probably finish before the boys. Whilst the boys were busy, everybody wanting to be, I'm the Mr. this and that. And so there is an element of truth in that men in many societies, they're the loudest, they're the ones who talk the most, and so on. It doesn't mean that, you know, that you're necessarily the best at everything. And if you don't allow women an opportunity, the chance to do it, because you want to protect that position that you have, then, you know, the society suffers. You know, I heard a very, very disturbing report this morning when I was coming in, and it's to do with Turkey. And it has one of the highest rates of femicide in Europe, I think the highest. And what has catalyzed the whole discussion was that there was a single Tuesday when 7 women on that day were killed by either the husband or former husband. And it was such a shock to them that they're now having this debate.
Hold on.
About
the same day?
In the same day, a particular Tuesday. It was a BBC report I heard this
27
morning.
women?
No, 7. 7 women were killed on the same day by either husband or ex-husband. And this was just shocking, and it brought to fact. And they said that in the first 6 months, I think of last year, 93 women were killed in Turkey by either a husband or ex-husband. And they're saying, why is it that it's become this sort of thing in a country where women had always had a kind of, because of the constitution and so on, a sort of mainly equal role. However, they have something in Turkey called the civil code, because, you know, it's a secular country. But even in the civil code, it says that the man is the head of the household. So even in a country that has always supposedly practiced equality of the sexes, that actually is in their civil code, which is the kind of code by which they live. It says, you know, the man is still the head of the household. So when you have that enshrined pretty much almost in the constitution, that's what you're fighting against. And so when Jawda says women should take the onus and lead, it's not as easy as that, because society and everything else doesn't necessarily allow that. And that's why it's never happened. There are lots of brilliant women in the Gambia. But how many of them come forward, particularly? We see how they suffer when they try and stand for political office. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, you know, the issue of women being given leadership positions in Africa, not only in Gambia, it's a very critical one, because I think most of the time people are not honest to themselves. You understand? I have no problem women leading. My friend, if you have the brains, lead. If you have the stuff, lead. We know women, there are women, if you give them leadership positions, they will execute. You know, they are more proactive than even other men, you understand? So most of the problems that we have is we don't have the confidence, and we are not honest to ourselves to give them the chance to lead. Woman is good, man is good. They are all the same. You know, so why not? If she can, why not give her the chance? But we are not just being very honest. We talk about it on television.
And sometimes there are these ones that come and they shock people in the sense that you have a country like Pakistan, where Benazir Bhutto was former, you know, prime minister. You would never have imagined that a country like that, quite a patriarchal society, would have had a female leader, and yet they did, you know. She was deposed eventually, but she was, you know,
she was given a chance.
She was given a chance, and yeah. So, but yes, it's something. But it's a very interesting quote, and I'm sure everybody who heard it is now they've got their own versions of that, and examples in real life of where that has been made manifest. You know.
Well, I think we don't have problems when it comes to sometimes governments. We have seen in our cabinet, of course, women are given chances. I mean, permanent secretary positions, we've seen.
Well, those are in government.
Yes, we've seen
civil service.
Exactly. We've seen other positions, women given the opportunity to be there. But politically, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
When it comes to voting, we go out, we call women, they will come over, they clap and dance, but at the end of the time, you know, they won't be given any chance. The mental picture that we have, you know, leadership positions that are to be voted for, it should be only men. And I think that mentality should change. You understand?
So there are a lot of misconceptions surrounding this. I mean, for me, I can't really get it. If you can trust a woman with your life, you know, someone who molds you, takes care of you, you know, feeds you, do everything for you. You grow up to be a responsible man. I really don't get it why you can't trust that woman, the same woman, to lead you. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't really add up. For me, I think there is a misconception as far as feminism is concerned, misconception as far as activism is concerned, and they tend to put all this Zim family, you know, against women, which I think it's unfair at the end of the day, you know, because if you're a feminist, they were, okay, you're some kind of
like almost like
person. Yeah.
Oh, they think that if you're a feminist, you hate men. It's not it's not
that.
true.
You can't hate
quite.
men.
No,
they
it's
are
not.
our fathers, they are our uncles, they are our brothers. How can you hate someone who is that?
Yeah, and yet that's the attitude some people have, and that's the concept some people have. And
so
it's
let us not make it as if Gambia, it's a very serious thing in the Gambia. Fine, sometimes it's a problem.
As if what is not a serious thing in the Gambia.
As if, I mean, women are being deprived too much.
Trust me,
I
it's
mean,
a serious thing.
No, not very.
Globally,
Look,
don't sweep it under the carpet.
No, but there are other countries that are more serious than the Gambia.
Go to in Africa, like I said, in our parliament, in our National Assembly, it's one of the worst representations even in Africa. It's one of the worst, if not the worst.
In our National Assembly?
Yes, in terms of the number of women who are there. It's the lowest in Africa.
All right, so let's just leave that to our viewers. Let them judge. Let them at least have something to cogitate. You understand?
Particularly the quote. Let them cogitate the quote and discuss it amongst themselves.
Exactly.
I'm sure right now there are WhatsApp groups and people sending in messages saying, these people are talking a lot of nonsense. But the facts are the facts. You know, we've got very low representation politically, and I think that needs to change. Otherwise, brilliant young women who are coming up will become disillusioned, and if they can't make it in their own country, they'll go somewhere else where they can be accepted and they can be given leadership roles, and we don't want that. We want them to contribute to the betterment of this country.
Exactly. So, like I said, on the program, we'll be taking a look at the centenary of the birth of Sir Dawda Jawara, and we'll be taking a look at his life, his early childhood, when he was a prime minister, independence. We'll also be talking about the coup d'etat, 1981 coup d'etat. For those of us who were small by then, you know, I know many people will be like, what? Did you witness that? You did not witness that.
Kukoi.
You know, the Kukoi Sambasayan coup.
Yes,
or
yes,
maybe they explained it to you.
Yes, I read it. I read this story. So.
Honestly, I wasn't born by then.
Yes, I mean, lots of things happened here in the Gambia. And of course, as you rightly say, you know, we're looking at the centenary of the birth of the man who is frequently referred to as the father of the nation. I remember when he passed away, we had a very long broadcast that we did from the National Assembly. For me, it was a very emotional day because this is somebody who, because of my age, I had followed his trajectory of his political life, certainly. And because also Sierra Leone and the Gambia always had close ties, and I always mention this, my father was born here. So we always had an eye on what was happening in the Gambia. And so, you know, very much aware of Sir Dawda. And we kind of almost followed things that were happening here as if they were happening in Sierra Leone, you know, certainly when I was growing up. And people of my age will tell you that we almost knew as much about Gambian politics as we did about our own. I don't think that's the case anymore. Times have changed, and priorities have changed, and people's interests have changed. And I've always felt it's a bit sad that that has happened. But Sir Dawda, of course, the man who, as you rightly said, was first Prime Minister.
Exactly.
And before Prime Ministership, when they gave sort of kind of limited self-determination to the Gambia, he was what they call the Premier of Gambia. So if you take his whole term in office, effectively, he was leader for 30 years, which is a long time.
Exactly.
Which is a long time. And as I said, you know, myself and others, we probably felt that, yes, he was an admirable man, but he probably outstayed.
He overruled.
Yes, I mean, and this is a thing that we find across many African countries. They never know when to leave the scene, which is a shame, because it ends up tarnishing their legacy somewhat. You know.
Well,
but there's a lot to admire.
Yes,
about.
when you look at Sir Dawda Jawara, you know, how he transitioned from being a veterinary doctor. I mean, you know, to becoming the president of the prime minister, then to the president of the Republic of the Gambia. And the way they push so that the Gambia can gain its independence.
Then they pushed, and they really had to push.
I watched a particular documentary when they visited Marlborough House.
Yes, for the talks, independence talks, Marlborough House in London. Yes, Dawda was there. But let's not. We give him a lot of the credit, rightly so. But people like Edward Francis Small, there had been people pushing for self-determination and independence for the Gambia long before Dawda came along, and they were the ones who took it to that extra stage. And as you rightly said, and the talks in London really centered around the fact that they felt Gambia was too small, and that it would only survive if it went into a federation or a confederation with Senegal. And that briefly happened, but of course they fell out, particularly when it came to the point of rotating the presidency. Senegal, let's be honest, felt that why should we rotate with small Gambia? And really that's why that collapsed.
Was the population around 5,000?
What's that?
Then the population of
500,000.
500,000.
Yeah, 500,000, 500,000. Yeah, yes. But Senegal felt it was too small. But Dawda pushed, but also he was a man of foresight. We know that before Gambia was even independent, he had made trips to Israel because he was intrigued that this was another small country, and yet in what was supposedly mainly a barren land, and yet very, very quickly they became very much self-sufficient in food production, and he wanted to know how they did it. And so he made at least 3 trips there before Gambian independence, even up to 1963. By then he'd already made 3 trips to Israel to learn about their farming methods, and there are lots and lots of pictures of him going to these farming communities and seeing how they were doing it, because the soil was supposedly not that conducive, and yet managed to do it. So yes, of course, 63, and then by 65, of course, came independence celebration. The 60s was a time when many countries were becoming independent in Africa, and the Gambia, we have to be honest, many people felt would never succeed as a nation just because of its tiny size. How can this country stand on its own?
Survive.
And so the British, they were being kind of like your father patting you on the head. Now, be a good boy. Let us continue to rule. Or if you don't want us here, at least go into this confederation with Senegal. But Dawda and others pushed against that and said, no, we will stand on our own and we will make our own way. We have enough. And you talk about the fact that he went from being a veterinary surgeon to somebody who was involved in politics to becoming prime minister. If you think about it, there were not a lot of Gambian men and women who had gone to university and gone to that sort of higher education. So there was a very small pool that you were sort of choosing from. But yet they were there. Even then there were Gambian women who had written books and written plays, and Gambian men who had studied law and medicine and so on. So there was, for all its small size, and it's still the case now. There are lots of Gambians who are high achievers, and not all of them are in the Gambia, sadly. They're in other countries. But Dawda tried to bring people together and say, look, let's, come together. And again, what many people don't know, when we grew up, before he became Dawda, he was David Jawara, was at independence. When you read and you see the thing, they don't mention Dawda Jawara. They say David Jawara. Later on, he reverted to Dawda. But, remember thinking, hang on a minute, we used to call this guy David Jawara. Why is he now Dawda Jawara? Of course, that's what we know him as.
There's a long story.
Oh, yeah.
He used to be He used to be Dawda. Then David. Then back to Dawda again.
Yes,
exactly. So Grandpa transitioning from one place to another.
Well, that's right.
Yes.
But the country owes him a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
And I always say to people, we should never forget, because if people like him had given up and given in, we wouldn't be where we are now as a republic. In fact, probably not even as an independent nation. There are countries, you have Scotland, which is next door to England. They've been talking about independence forever, but I don't think they have the guts for it because they've never voted to leave the United Kingdom. They're still part of that, but yet Gambia did it, and here we are now. It's now a republic, and because it's now a republic, and we take this for granted, we don't remember the struggle, but we must remember the struggle.
Absolutely,
really. We can't
because if you don't know your past, then you can't plan your future, because that somehow informs your future, because you need to know how did we get here. And I always despair when I meet young Gambians who know very little of the story, either of Dawda, of the early years, and they ought to know more, because it will help you realize that this is how we got to where we are today. So we'll be having a series of programs here on QTV, and also today, I think at 5:30, at the Dawda Kairaba International Conference Center, they will be planting a tree in his honor. His widow, Lady Chela, will be there, and I think the president will be there, although I think the president is on tour, so maybe somebody else might step in. But that should be quite a symbolic event. And so there are lots of events. There are debates, there are symposiums and so on, to honor this centenary, and which is as it should be.
Exactly.
Really.
I mean, yes, Jordan.
Man, I think what I remember, and which was visible, is the fact that there were trees planted everywhere on the highways. Then you see lots of trees, and some of them are no more there. But
you mean when you look back at old footage?
Yeah,
right.
Lots of trees in the Gambia. That goes to show like how much he preserved the environment and protecting our flora and fauna. Then Abuko, if you're passing by, you see all these monkeys and all these animals. So it was really nice. It was really nice.
Well, this is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think sometimes we tend to just focus on the politics. But this is somebody who, we're now talking about environmental change, we're talking about climate change and so on. This is somebody who very much cared about the environment, and that was in the policies that he propagated here in the Gambia.
The Banjul Declaration
of course, exactly, Banjul Declaration. So, these things should not be forgotten, because sometimes we focus just on the politics or the political side of it. Well, as I said, earlier on, he was a husband, he was a father, and he was also somebody who was, in the days when it was not even fashionable, he was an environmentalist.
Exactly.
So he had great foresight.
We talk about the TDA, that's the Tourism Development Area. I think he contributed a lot in setting aside that area, because they mapped out a particular, area and said, okay, this is a tourism development area. Nobody should touch this. And they put this in their policies that anybody who is going to build something here, it's going to be a tourism,
related
thing. So I think he did a lot. When you look at some of the, achievements as well, democracy during his time.
Gambia was the center of the democracy.
Absolutely. So you can see they advocate for democracy during his time, and you lived, by feeling, okay, I'm living in a place whereby democracy is key. Everything came to a standstill when the coup in 1994.
Well, before that, you had the 81 coup, of course.
That's the coup.
Sabasanyang one. And that was a kind of warning sign, because coup d'etats, as we have currently, had really started infecting West Africa. Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, they'd all had coup d'etats, and people were like, why is it happening? And lots of, other countries, Togo and others, had sort of military dictatorships and so on. But I have to say, we never thought it would happen in the Gambia until it did. After the 81 coup, which wasn't that, successful really, that should have been a warning sign. But I don't think the warning signs were heeded. We forget now that, okay, yes, the men who came with Jame, they came with guns. But really, when they took over, people danced in the streets to welcome them. Why did they do that? Because they felt that Dawda had overstayed. That's why they did it. Nobody put a gun to their head and said, come out and dance.
Yeah.
You know, but of course, later on, people grew to regret that decision. It's never the answer. So you're right, he was very much somebody who believed in democracy, practiced it. It wasn't his fault that people kept telling him, stay on, stay on, stay on. But that's the sign of a leader. Even if people are telling you to stay on, you should say, no, I've had enough.
I have to move.
Because you have to build a structure where there is a natural successor.
Absolutely.
Somebody who can take over from you without missing a beat. You know, because God forbid you die in office, they don't bury the job with you. And there are many countries when we don't have that. You go to Rwanda, for all that we're singing the praises of Kagame, you don't get the sense that there's a natural successor willing to step into his shoes if, God forbid, he has a heart attack and drops down dead. But that's what you do as a leader. You build other people so that it's not just about you.
Automatically.
It's not just about you. It's about the structures that you... And he tried that. He did that. But the reason they kept telling him to stay on was because they, the people around him, didn't feel that there was this natural successor who could step into his shoes and take the country forward.
Well, you know, most of the time, the problem that we face with African leaders, they don't know when to leave the dance floor.
When to leave the stage.
You know, they said the best dancer knows
problem.
when to leave the dancing floor.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, you might end up, you know, disgracing yourself. Or sometimes people can move you forcefully.
Well, this is it. And you know, if you haven't been there, for many people, it's easy to say, I will never be like this. I remember interviewing Alpha Conde, and he was telling me, he said, if I get elected, if I'm allowed to stand, because he had just been released, like 2 weeks, he'd been released from prison by Lansana Conte. He said, you know, I will not be this dictator. You know, I would ensure there is true democracy in Guinea-Conakry. What happened when he came in? You know, talk is cheap.
It's
very
cheap.
He wanted
it's like
to change
the quote we had. He wanted to change the constitution to allow him to stay, to stay on. You know, and so for a lot of them, when they get into power and they realize how much they love it, everywhere you go, people are bowing, and who wants to give that up? You don't have to live. You know, you want to stir a cup of tea. There's somebody. Let me stir it for you. You know, and all that nonsense. You know, people get sucked into it and they get seduced by it and they never want to give it up. And that's why they ended up staying. Look, Museveni is saying that he's going to stand again in 2026. He's already done 40 years. Come on. Come on.
To do what,
you know,
exactly?
What more do you need to do? You know, you'll be close to 90 by then. You know, ridiculous. But, you know, if we go back to Dawda, for much of the time he was very much a Democrat, somebody who believed in democracy. And he didn't go around banning political parties or anything like that. You know, he wanted it because, you know, democracy is about contestation. There has to be competing voices. And you have to allow that. You know, you know, that certainly happened whilst he was Prime Minister and then later President.
Freedom of speech and that of the press.
Freedom
and
of the
you
press,
know, the PPP party was called the Protectorate People's Party.
Oh, I know that. Initially.
Yes.
Initially.
And now they changed it later to the People's Progressive Party.
Because, you know, in the Gambia, you had what you had in Sierra Leone. You had a colony and a protectorate. And the protectorate was what we used to call in Sierra Leone up country. And Freetown was the colony. And the people in the colony pretty much ran everything. And it was the same in the Gambia. Those in what we used to call Bathos Gambia, now Banjul, they kind of ran everything. And so people felt that the people from the protectorates were kind of disenfranchised and that they needed a voice. They needed somebody to speak for them. But that's fine. But then if you have that in your name, it kind of limits you, really. And that's why they changed it. Because people will think you're only representing people from the protectorate.
Yes. I mean, he's a guy from Barajali. And, you know, I personally went to his house. Yes, during one of my QCell trips up country. So I was like, the driver, please take me to Sadara Karaba's home.
Okay.
I want to know where this great man hails from.
Right.
So I went to his house.
Okay.
Very simple home.
Right.
Very simple house, very simple, everything simple.
Right.
You know, so it can tell you how these people, I mean, the way they think before, you understand?
Well,
it would have been, it would have been the Kanilai.
Well,
it would have been.
Yeah, quite. You know, you come from humble beginnings, and it doesn't mean that, and for me, that's always been an inspiration that I think Gambian young people should draw from. You look at Sadauda's trajectory of where he was born, where he come from, where he hails from, to where he went. You know, don't let your mind limit you. You know, think, you know, I can achieve anything and everything. And that's how, and for me, that is one of the things that when I talk to people about him, that's one of the things I always point to, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Look at his humble beginnings. He didn't let that limit him. He didn't let that limit his ambition. And you could extend that to things like independence. You know, nowadays, because it's out of context, people don't realize the pressures that there were on them worldwide not to go for independence. Even their friends were telling them, no, we don't think it's a good idea. You know, and yet he, most of all by that time, was pushing, saying, no, we'll go for this, and we will make it on our own. We'll stand on our own feet. You know,
from 1970 to 2000,
agriculture, he played a very pivotal role.
Of course.
We were exporting
absolutely,
groundnut, bunga fish, and all of that.
When you reflect from 1970 to 1994, you know, when the former President Jammeh did his coup d'etat with his junta members, I mean, Sadauda was sent to exile, you know, for many years.
Sure.
I think that also, you know, affected many people, because in the Gambia before, Sadauda was like that icon that everybody look up to. You know, it's more of a very comforting and peaceful when you see Sadauda Karaba Jawara. You know, sending that man to exile, the man who contributed to the independence of the Gambia, you know, that was a great shock to everybody. You know, former President Jammeh talks about the white people exploited Africa for 400 years. You've been in Africa, nobody sent you, and now we want to go and you send us back. So I'm not going to bow down to any white. He says that all the time.
He used to say that a lot,
you know, so the guy that contributed, to telling the whites, please, now we want to run our affairs. You send that guy to exile. That was really shocking. If I still think about that, it hurts very hard.
Yeah, and I think also one has to talk about things like diplomacy when you think about the fact that unlike somewhere like Guinea-Bissau and Cabo Verde, where you had people like Amilcar Cabral, it was a bloody, vicious fight to get independence from the Portuguese. The Gambia never had to do that. In Sierra Leone, you had people like Baibure, who was sent into exile. You had others who tried to fight for in Ghana, Gold Coast as well. But you know, you had people who were executed because they were South Africa. You know, all these many other countries, and the Portuguese were probably the worst and the last, because all the Portuguese colonies were the last to be given independence, and that was in the 70s, 1975 onwards. When we think about it, it's quite shocking. By then, almost every other former European colony was independent. But in the Gambia, you didn't have to take up arms to get rid of the British. You did it with negotiation. And that takes, because the reason they wanted to hold on to these things were for all sorts of reasons, strategically and so on. Because the Gambia, yes, it didn't have gold, diamonds and so on that they had in other countries. But not just the river. The river was important because of the kind of, you know, it gave them a kind of thing with the French, you know. But also where it is the mouth of the river at the Atlantic Ocean. That's a brilliant strategic point for the British to be, if you have a naval base there and you can send fleets across the Atlantic Ocean from there. So they don't give up things like that easily. And so it took negotiation, it took diplomacy to say, you know, take your hand off this country called the Gambia. You know, prize their hand away. And so that is, again, that's a skill in itself, you know, and we sometimes forget these things. But yes, you know, Gambia didn't have to go to war.
Exactly. I mean, I think before, during Sadauda's time, things were much easier, you know, although there are struggles as well. But compared to economic challenges You know, we used to have a very small economy, very small population. You know, the struggles were not like this before. You know, most people
was pretty much very good.
Easier and cheaper. Most people depend on farming.
To be honest, the world was different then. It's a different world. You know, now the world is a lot more interconnected in terms of trade, in terms of telecommunications. You're talking about QCell and QCell's reach and so on. We now live in, you know, I can sit here and I can order something online, as I did a couple of years ago from Amazon, and, you know, a week later it was here. So, you know, trade has changed over that time. It was a simpler time, and now that it's a global economy more than it was before, things that affect us now happen in Russia, they happen in other countries and so on. And it was a different time. It was a different time.
Yes, I mean, when you look at the 1981 coup d'etat as well, there are a lot of things that happened when Kukoy Samba Sanyang wanted to, you know, overthrow former President Jawara. By then, he was on a trip. Then he appealed to the government of Senegal to intervene. And they sent 2,700 soldiers to the Gambia. And it was really a very bloody coup. Because many people were killed in the 1981 coup d'etat. I was talking to my dad the other day. He said to me,
a lot of our things were looted
my dad said to me, do you know the 1981 coup d'etat? Someone said to my father, that's my grandfather, they've killed your son in Banjul. So my grandfather was so desperate. He was in Basse. By then communication wasn't easy like this.
Like
it
this
will
today.
take a month before you send a letter to Banjul, from Basse to Banjul. So one day my dad traveled back home to Basse. You know, when his dad saw him, he couldn't believe.
Thought he was a ghost.
It was my son, you understand? So it was so, I mean, it was a crazy one.
Yeah, people were killed.
So the Senegalese forces came and they maintained law and order.
Yeah, they suppressed the coup and restored law and order. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so there are many challenges, you know, by then. You know, Julde won't be able to tell us. I mean, what he remembered about that.
Nothing, absolutely. Just what I read on books.
Of course.
That's the only thing I can say.
And our colleague Choi did a documentary some years ago about the coup, which people can find on YouTube. And even Lady Chilwell and some of Sadada's children were at one point, you know, sort of being held captive. And a couple of British agents were able to come in and end up rescuing them. So it was a quite fraught, scary, emotional time. And like I said, for the Gambia, it was a shock because nothing like that had ever happened in the country. Yeah,
it was unfortunate. The first family then went through so many issues because I can remember, I mean, someone said, because the 1981 coup, I was in Bonn by then. You know, but I was talking to people that witnessed the coup, one of our uncles. I mean, he was even part of those who were running up and down, you know. He said to me, I listened to Radio Gambia by then, you know, when they brought the wife of Sir Dawda Jawara on radio.
Yes.
And they said to her,
talk. Yes.
She said, I won't talk. And they slapped her.
Yes.
They slapped her on radio. And everybody was like, what was happening? So they went through a lot, you know, and I think it's a struggle. Sometimes people do a lot of things so that it can happen. Most people, according to discussions, they said the 1994 coup d'etat was a planned coup between the former president Jammeh and Sadauda Jawara, which I don't still believe. But
well, it doesn't even make sense.
You know, many people said Jawara wanted to at least leave power.
But there are ways to leave power.
But people were not ready. I mean, there was a time he went to to LRR where he said, I want to stand down. It's high time now I stand
down. And they pleaded with him.
So many people were saying, I cannot live in the Gambia without Sadauda Jawara. So I think the junta, they used that opportunity to do what they did. Yes,
I mean, it was an excuse, but it certainly wasn't a planned thing because you don't then force yourself into exile and miss your country. There are ways you can stand down. You can just stand down. You don't have to get the military to take over, and that's, for me, that's a nonsense. But yes, you know, as we said earlier, he should have gone with his own instincts and not listened to people, because after 30 years of being at the helm of a country, how much longer do they want you to be there? If they're telling you stay forever, till you die, what does that say? You know, that's saying that there's no plan of succession. And so you have to have that.
People
and like
always
said,
say that. It's the same for Jammeh. People didn't want him to go, and at some point he felt like
he done 22 years.
Yeah, forever.
You know? And he himself started to believe that he could or should rule forever. And as we said, it's across Africa. It's like a disease. It must be something in the air that a lot of them, you know, we're the only continent that has about, I think, 4 or 5 presidents who've done more than 38 years.
Yes.
Well, you know,
quite shocking.
I don't understand. I watched one of former President Jammeh's interview when the Senegalese journalist interviewed him. He said, "We are just here to maintain law and order. We are not here to stay. We are just going to do our thing. In less than 6 months, we'll be leaving power."
Quite.
You know, so I mean, still.
And he went on to say,
he went on to 22 long years.
He went on to say in that very interview, he said, you know, these people who stay long, he said, for me, even 10 years is too much. If you listen to the whole of that interview, you know, and he ended up doing 22.
During Dawda Jawara's time, you know, all these ministers, they'll be buying Benz cars. By then we have the Benz.
Benz was the thing.
Benz 200. The Benz 200.
200, 220.
By then you don't even have the 190 Benz. It was Benz 200. You start buying Benz 200. And he was so, you know, he was so aggressive with the people of Fajara. You know, he mentioned most of them. You go and buy compounds around Fajara. You know, so all those things.
I think at the latter part of President Dawda's presidency was the fact that, you know, there was a huge corruption which the junta member capitalized on, and they used that as a campaign tool, sort of.
But look at what happened with them. when you're not in power, you can say that nonsense.
You can say a lot of things.
But when you become as corrupt as the people you said you were, or even more corrupt, you know, ended up buying how many cars, houses in the United States.
Only Jammeh owned 400 cars.
You know,
plus.
We've
seen all those.
And
things.
somebody was trying to defend that to me and saying, well, he was the president, he was entitled. I'm like, no, in a country this size, why should a president be entitled to that number of cars?
You know, we experienced peace and calm during Dawda Jawara's time. You understand? That was very peaceful. It was democracy.
And you weren't scared to speak, even if you were speaking critically. I mean, I remember that started coming to the Gambia in the 80s. And by the 90s, you know, when I started coming during the coup, I would be sitting with friends. And, you know, like, you're among friends, you want to criticize the government, and they're like,
you discuss.
You don't know who's, you don't know the houseboy or the housemaid might be listening.
I think,
you're like, what?
Yeah, I think after the coup d'etat in 1994, you know, everything changed.
It changed.
You know, you cannot say your mind, you cannot say certain things. So that's why I said most people talk about the government of President Adama Barrow. But I think Adama Barrow's government, you know, is trying to restore that confidence.
That lost
you know, that I mean, we are enjoying that Jawara vibes again. So I think, you know, when you talk about President Barrow, you need to talk about the peace. I mean, that he comes with. I mean,
he won an award.
The humility as well. So I think it's important. We are getting that vibe of former President Yahya Jammeh again.
Yahya Jammeh?
Oh. Rather.
Dawda.
Dawda Jawara.
Mr. Ade mentioned earlier that it's good for people to learn. If you learn your history, you know your history, you tend to appreciate certain things. And you will not take things for granted, you know, as a country, as a people. But if you don't learn, we don't know our history, all of these things tends to be new to us. Freedom of expression, democracy, these things are not new to the Gambia. We were at some point champion of democracy.
Absolutely.
But because we don't learn, we don't know our history, we think these things are new.
And what I found disturbing was that the kind of repression and authoritarianism on the Jammeh, people took for granted because it became what they knew. If you're born and you're 22 years old on the day of that coup, it means for the whole of your life, all you've known is a dictator and this authoritarian figure. And you think that's normal?
I'm here.
You know, you think that's
babies.
exactly. You think that's normality, and so you don't think it was better or different because you don't know any different. It's all you've ever known, and so you think a dictatorship is that's how life should be. But no, it's not. There is something better. There was something better, and we're trying to return to that something better. It's not an easy one because, as I said, you don't brush away 22 years. There are still people who tell me they still wish Jammeh was back here.
Because they don't know the previous government before Jammeh.
Yeah, they've never known any other.
I believe most of this noise,
60% of our population
most of the noise on social media is the 1994 born to date. You know, but for people like us, we know what happened previously. We saw Dawda Jawara, and we although we did not interact with him, but at least we enjoyed that moment. You understand? My dad called him the British boy. I mean, he was very eloquent, and he can when he is giving his speech, you enjoy it.
Yes, he's quite articulate, and you're right. Eloquent is a lovely word, and he was, and in fact he got better because if you saw his, many people were not used to giving interviews on radio or TV. So if you listen and you watch, a lot of them were a bit stiff. As time went on, they got better at it, and so did he. Mind you, so did Jammeh. Let's be honest. But yes, you're right. He was eloquent, and but it was a different time.
It reminded me. Someone said Sekou Touré will talk for 1 week on the radio.
Trust me.
That's what I heard.
2 hours, 3 hours, not 1 week, but he would give 2 hours
speeches. He can talk for hours without even
without breaking. It's true. It's true.
Someone said that
we used to listen to.
I couldn't believe.
We used to listen to RTG. You know, the Guinean channel, and he'd speak for 2 hours non-stop.
That's hilarious.
When are you going to stop? I mean, we didn't understand what he was saying, but you know, we still listened just because we were fascinated that this was President Sekou Touré talking and talking and talking. But our own then president and later prime minister, later president, Shaka Stevens, he was just as well. But the difference with Shaka Stevens, he could speak for an hour, and I'm telling you, and I always say this to Sierra Leoneans who didn't live or go through that time, you would never be bored in that 1 hour or whatever. He was a great orator, very good at giving speeches. Not everybody is. And Sekou Touré, of course, nobody dared switch off in Guinea anyway, not if you valued your life.
He made my grandfather walk from Guinea-Conakry using the bagway, you know, up to Basse. so
he drove out many people.
And you tell them Sekou Touré is coming, you're going to fight the whole day.
he made life hell for the Fullers. He didn't like the Fullers.
Yes. My grandfather walked, I mean, on foot up to Basse. They use this mountain, sometimes they hide. You tell them Sekou Touré people are coming, they will enter in a valley, at some point they'll be hiding until they got to Basse.
Wow.
So that's how my
they settled.
But the thing about Dawda and Sekou Touré and all these people, these were all the guys who led their countries. I mean, Sekou Touré first in 1958 broke away from the French because the French were saying, no, stay. And he was like, no, to hell with you, you know. And 1958, you know, he broke away. And so these guys in the 50s, late 50s and 60s who, look, you know, and Dawda was one of the last to pass away, Dawda and then Kenneth Kaunda, you know, lived into the 90s.
But I learned that Sekou Touré said to the Guinea people, he said to them, even if I die, you will not see my corpse. You won't see my dead body. So, I mean, at some point he died somewhere, exiled.
In Ghana.
Yes, that's what I heard.
But
and at some point they said, okay, they brought back the, you know, the dead body.
Well, so no, he died. Then they brought his body back.
No, they said that wasn't the body. So they took they buried something, and many people were curious to know who was buried because they couldn't believe Sekou Touré will die. You understand? So when they opened the casket, and they made a banana trunk inside the grave.
Very funny.
That's what I heard.
Not true. But Sekou Touré also gave, when Kwame Nkrumah was forced into exile, he gave him comfort there. And in fact, Kwame Nkrumah died in Guinea-Conakry. And for a while, Sekou Touré was actually refusing to repatriate his body back to Ghana, because he said, you people should be ashamed. This is the man who led you to independence.
Correct.
And you drove him out.
That's what I heard.
But eventually Kwame Nkrumah's body was repatriated to Ghana.
All right, I think we've taken more than enough time now.
Yes, and we hope we have done justice to Sir Dawda, but as I said, there will be a program on...
a special program at 3 p.m.
We'll
be recording today.
Yeah, we're recording today. It will be broadcast tomorrow in the Hell slot, 10 o'clock. Yeah, we hope people will watch. And of course, we should remind our viewers that for this program, the weekend starts here. Because this is the last program of the, Thursday is the weekend for this morning program. So yeah. But yes, let's honor Sir Dawda in the way, and let's honor him by maintaining democracy in this country and promoting democracy. And also, let's do the things that he believed in, protecting the environment. Let us embrace these things. They've now become fashionable worldwide, but he was doing them when they weren't fashionable. A lot of people jump on what is a bandwagon. When he did it, it wasn't popular, and yet it just showed a certain amount of foresight, and I think we should remember that.
Absolutely. Mr. Ade, thank you very much for staying with us throughout the program.
Yes, indeed.
Can you imagine? We've taken 1 hour of your time.
I didn't even realize. I thought it was like 25 minutes.
Yes.
I'm shocked.
This is what happens when you talk about the good that people did. It's important. We can even talk about Sir Dawda for 2 hours.
Well, yes. If you talk about somebody or a person that you admire, you respect, then of course it doesn't sound or it doesn't seem as if it's a particularly long conversation. So
Exactly. So now we'll take the click segment. All play, no work, make Jack a dull boy. All work, no play, make Jack a dull boy. So let's, as you know, Barhama, we don't need to introduce Barham. He is a superstar, we all know. He is preparing alongside his sister the classic, as you know. It's an event that everybody is waiting for.
What event is that?
It's more of a classic event whereby you go and see, best performance. Yes. If you want to enjoy yourself, I think that's the event that you've been waiting for.
So which is this event? Are you going to tell me?
It's going to be, it's
What's it called?
It's a classic event. They did it last year. And, it was really spectacular.
Okay.
And this time too, they are preparing for it. I know Barhama and Mariam Cham will be here, to tell us more about the event, their preparations. And
with the Drip King.
Absolutely. So we'll go straight to the click segment.
What a negativity far away. Happiness the wrong. More love and more money. Cordalia sang. Ninan sango kodo dara yotu waya boni mbarako woto hani vente mutanola. Ninan sango yun solva make la business jamal bayelela. Bring robo sol be wole pak. Luwa lebelola. Luwa pa lebelola. Ninan sango de. Luwa katam lebelola. Luwa lebelola. Luwa pa lebelola. Ninan sango de. Jelike baki baro tabulo febusa. Ninan sango babulo fansen tokiba. Dindin balo misalo fase downta. Fase downta. Elevate, elevate, celebrate, concentrate. Ninan sango ama extol my kafunyos that affect. Elevate, elevate, calculate, concentrate. Ninan sango ama extol fake kafunyos. Kuba bekele, for Kuba zike. Kuba bekele. jabita. Koto besi ala hajebe yelela mama duale jabita. Baba, nina kuba bekelale. Nina luba bekelale. Nina nene majo bekelale. Nina. What a negativity far away. Happiness daro. More love and more money. Cordalia sang. Yinan sango kodo dara yotu waya boni mbarako. What a honey vente mutanola. Yinan sango yun solva make la business jamal bayelela. Break robo sol me wole pak. Luwa lebelola. Luwa pa lebelola. Yinan sango de. Luwa katang lebelola. Luwa lebelola. Kibaro tabulo febusa Ninan sango babulo fansen to kibar Dinding bolo misalo fose damuta Fose damuta Elevate, elevate, celebrate, concentrate Ninan sango ama extol my kafu news that I fake Elevate, elevate, calculate, concentrate Ninan sango ama extol fake kafu news
We are back. Kubak bekelale nyinang fop kuba seke. We are back. And click segment comme nu ma len ko waxe rek ñu ngi prepare for classic bi. You know, so Lee is going to be a great event, and I have my brother Churchill Balde on the click segment. Churchill, big up yourself.
Big up on yourself.
I go.
My brother. No, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Right now, you're classic because
Wow,
you're classic, so you look all classic right now.
Yeah.
Good morning from wherever you're watching us from. It's your man right here, Churchill Balde, on the click segment. Today is a very special edition of the click segment, and we have no other than Barhama and the sister Mariama. You know, as we prepare the classic event, you know, we did it last year and we're going back again this year, inshallah, bigger, better. So welcome to the show, bro.
Yeah, thanks so much, bro. You know what I mean? It's always a pleasure to be here, you know what I'm saying?
True,
Because QTV, Q City, Q Cell is home, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
whenever we get
most
here, like it's another beautiful feeling, you know what I'm saying?
True.
So I'm also taking this opportunity to say good morning to each and everyone who's watching right now, wherever you might be. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. This is Barham and Mariama right here, you know?
Barhama and
Yeah.
Mariama. So you back a moment and new fancy.
Yeah, just happy being here this morning show and saying good morning to everybody.
Wow, you feel classic like it. Manako affair you feel classic like it. Wow, so like you delve straight to the classic event because defon ngeen ko last time. So ñu njëkka doye with the feedback from the last time experience bi and why you feel the need to continue with it this year.
Yeah, the last time it was another beautiful experience to everybody new for new one because before you def show bisa we were not just trying to do a show because we want to do a show. But we wanted to do a show that is totally different from the regular shows that used to happen.
True talk.
Because yala dafa def ne we are among the lucky ones yi nga xam ne am fans from all age. Understand? We have fans that are too young, middle age, and then ñi nga xam ne ay kilifa lañ.
True.
You understand? So we were thinking, what kind of event can we bring? Bi nga xam ne ni ku nekk dina si hëcc. Nit maam mun naa ñëw mu indi doomam indi setam. So that was something that really lacking from the industry because dafa am certain elderly people. They would not go to our concerts. That's why if you ask them about Gambian music, they will tell you, yeah, the boys are not singing.
True.
Simply because we didn't cater for them.
Wow.
So we were trying to create that platform of class and quality where everyone fits. And then we go extra mile to create that platform because one of the mentors that we have went to when trying to create everything, he told us that, what are you going to bring on stage which is going to be totally different from the regular thing? Because it's obvious that when you call for a show, people understand that the live band is going to be there.
True.
Music is going to be played.
True.
But what are you going to do up to an extent that you can build a picture in their mind up to an extent, and whenever you talk about the show, you'll be like classic. You see? So those were the things that we considered before getting into it. And trust me, everybody that came to the classic was like, wow.
I was one of the people that was fortunate to be there, and truly, I enjoyed every moment of the show because from the start to the end, you know, talking about some outfits, understand what I'm talking about, some performance, it was all classic.
It was actually. It was
how much can I more enjoy?
No, not go enjoy. Because
I was really entertained.
It was a deep connection from the musical side to the poetry side to the storytelling, just to make sure that now everything have a starting point to put people in the vibe, you understand, you know. And always then they come with a concept around it, not just. Last year was made in the Gambia. This year too is celebrating made in the Gambia, but in a different way. So like
in the previous one, turnout bolen amnon, is it something that you were expecting or it was beyond your expectation?
The thing is, when it comes to turnout, when you try to sell class and quality, sometimes do they yakamte.
True.
You understand? Because when you talk about Barham Mariama, Santa Yala, the help, but the names, like household name la, you understand? And then we don't just wanna definitely bum. We wanna grow with the classic and the crowd.
True.
You understand? Last year the crowd was really good. Especially you have people that don't usually go to shows.
Wow.
You understand?
True.
So that was the biggest success. And then last year was the first time
Wow.
You know, because over the years they sit on tele but musuñu sit on live.
Okay.
So it was a special moment.
And it was very emotional as well.
Yeah.
So my engage Mariam, lan mo nekon challenges tamit yo len encounter one during the previous ones and lan ngeen buga develop see this one coming up inshallah.
Okay, hamga both of us we are visionaries. What we want to put on stage, the production, we picture it in our heads already.
Okay.
So soko amute due to resources, soko amute due to props and stuff like that. Hamga daf la dey meet. So last time finance Lego legi. So last year, because how we pictured the production, at the end of the day, it was too prompt to put across everything.
Wow.
So lolu mo ñu metti won because we already had the picture in our heads. So how do we project this? How do we make people to see this? So but at the end of the day, what was available on the table, that's what we try to that's what we try to put in.
Yeah.
But this year we form a team earlier prior.
Okay.
I guess team bohamne, these are the people working on production. We're just working on our songs, and these are the other people that are working on script, because everything is script. Even every act that is gonna work on the stage
be scripted.
Is scripted.
Nice.
Understand? So just to say, this time we went extra miles, brainstorm new ideas. Gambian si nen gis luñ musta gis si Gambian event.
Wow. Fii moom every show ku nekk loolu la dee wax. Comme dañoo isi loo xamante ne dafa different, understand what I mean? Waaye léegi nga dem foofu noonu nga fekk fa the same thing. Waaye yéen moom masha Allah.
Yeah, because ñun
bu ñu ñëwee we saw something different, performance wise and everything. And xam nga everything nu mu doon ñëwee daal. Everything was just spectacular. Yeah, comme da ngeen match the name of the event.
Some boy classic, bro.
Classic. Exactly. So we have to maintain our crowd. Wow. So we have to be giving them every time something lo xamne ni ñom tam dafa tax ñu des wante dafa asiwaat more and more people to the classic.
True.
So right now la mo nek reaction from people, because already nit ñi xam nañ ne it is happening on the 25th. So la mo nek reaction from people, I getting positive reaction from people.
Big time.
Yeah, big time. From big people time. You don't even expect.
Yeah, because some people were telling me like I'd be so be like them. So the next show Monica be well I'd be demanguma so be la. Because ñep ñu ñëwoon dañoo ñëwaat, but ñeneen ñi ñëwutoon they are so much curious to come and see lan lañ wax lan lañ leen waxoon. Started from man ñun suñu own hood. Understand nga because man that's how it is. It si kër bi la dooree dem si koñ bi yaatal bagage bi. So this year's classic is going to be some next level comme nu ko Mariama waxee, and then we are coming different because over the years dafa am growth bu happen. Understand nga the musical side man Mariama la gaay gisangum léegi tar Mariama am na beneen level bu mu nekka. And in some other things yi nga xam ne ni is beyond just Gambian thing, you know.
No nekk di woy ne xam ne am na keneen ko nekk di groom de.
No.
Because ne Mariama leen gisagum. Dafa mel ni am na keneen ko groom de.
No, lu mean pour wax is like Gambians are yet to discover actually what we have.
Okay. Kon lu ndaw leen gisagum.
They yet to see the real talent behind it.
Agagu leen seen full potential.
suñu ne
waaye su fi yemoon sax mu ne.
Yàlla dina def suñu ne dañoo dem ba benn level ñu stop music bi yëpp ñu ne leen léegi music bi na stop de ñun suñ voice will be the music, will be the instruments, the voice will entertain everybody.
Okay.
And then you know te ñun ñaare we are playing something.
It's a perfect combination. Because man seetaan na benn programme la QTV tegoon, is it Tamala?
Yeah.
seetaan naa boobu noonu. It's really amazing.
It is.
dafa mel ni magic la. kii su ñëwee kii mu ñëw suñ combine. Oh my God daf dee ne.
ba pare seen voice yi daal léegi sax kii suy wéy sax dama mun a xam ne. doo ko dee mun a gaaw mën a différencier.
ma style la nga man maa moon voice bi.
ñoom ñaar sometimes.
waaw voice la.
non.
Barahama du dee nangu. Barahama du dee nangu.
non cooki xam nga dama bañ su nekkee moom dem nga ba ko ni ko toléré suma voice bi te góor la kon xoolal rek
last week am performance I think we were playing for you and one agency so ñi dem muma portu ma ko portu so mu jékki xam na ne moom is a guy they have that like deepness like a baritone stuff mu hotal ko nag mu ne ma after si mu ne ma toppa ma
no the fun that we used to have while performing ñun ñaare ñoo ko dee xam moo tax when you are there you have to connect because that usu ñaare moo wane mu ne ma musician bi you are entertaining people are loving everything that you do not waaye ñoom xamuñ ne su nekkoon 100% la yow yaa ngi joxe 200% because yow da nga am full magazine happiness full magazine joy full magazine melody among that magazine nga choose the best out of those giving it out to the people dafa fekk ne yow da nga ko njëkk a yëg
waaw
te man moom loolu la she's really blessed with breath control and high pitches and in long range shouts. So mom dafa ne poto foofu noonu suma poto ye foofu noonu ay man ma isi ko si suuf
I know no
yeah but my father the last time tam bo fi ñëwoon ngeen ne dafa nekk El Clasico before between yéen ñaar
tabi no ay hanga lan may problème bi hanga du mun a nekk El Clasico because man moom ye Barcelona je support understand nga so loolu lay problème
on the same team
no moom a xëcc foofu xam nga nga ngi mag bu góor boo xam ne you look up to him and moom mu ngi support Barca every time since when I was young xam nga Barca by force suñu winee Barca sax mood bi daf dee
exactly
waaw doo bëgg a xam nga
yow moom dafa mel ni Barham dafa am a huge impact in your life
waaw dëgg because you're so close
you know ku ne si famille bu nekk yàlla dafa def ne man am really close to all my siblings yàlla loolu dafa am lu bëri lu ma jàngee from other families ma nekk first doom bu góor understand nga am naa ay sisters but ma nekk first bu góor si famille bi so ma am nu ma taxawee understand nga te suma kilifa am nuñu ma yere waaye maanaam moom dañ niroo si lu bëri
non yéen kañ moom
si lu bëri su ma yaay sax def everything lañ niroole so dama ko dee wax ne yow
almost twins ngeen
you understand yeah you know si everything moo tax suma yaay suñ relationship la jaalut gaay you know yeah jaalut gaay everything the artistic side janga bi leneen ak leneen but I have
the female version of
you yeah dama wala copy
perfect she's the female
but
version
I have beautiful and cool siblings
wow no
and you know am something understand lu mu bëgg a woon askan bi understand comme luy prepare towards the show so by ñu woon guy this video and we'll be right back so ñëwee back Brahama and the sister will give you a nice performance you know to propel us to the show yeah stay tuned.
This is about greatness. Wow. Classic. We're fashion and style intertwined. We're class meet quality. We're talent meet creativity. True melody. We advocate for change. A timeless journey. Emotion. Rearrange. A celebration of art. Shining so bright. This is the classic.
yes
This is true definition of what classic really is. Mashallah. Fi mu nekk nii time bi bëriwul so ne leen bàyyi na ngeen def lu ndaw ñu sign out with loolu noonu.
tough
waaw kon nañ ko taf guys loolu lañ wax rek ñu dóor ko noonu lañ ko dóoree
waaw xam nga
Mariam léegi ñu dóor na ko tey nag foog ma jéem a seet these memories xam naa it won't be easy but naa jéngu pour ngeen mun a gis xam ne tobu ma rek nekk top of the list yaa gën a on a rocky road jéngu so many things you did you met you bëri la try I was a risk taker I was really young but dama yàgg xam things you ma bugga am def naa lebe race kas naa soko way just to name a few you won't believe it if I have to say yep memories you cool ak yu naqari yu cool ma ñaan mu yokku yu naqari ma jànge ci am na yu ma dut bugga fàttaleku ndax daf ma metti xol ndax soo ko xoolee sax jër ko di dee bu suma rakk génne àdduna aneeli lus ma sel ba sant yàlla dimbale ma tuuti ñu ne Barham sanku na but the love that I have for my mommy tax na ma takk ndigal strong moom di bana daa di nekk teelo lépp luñ amu bëri tuuti indi kër gi seedoo ko ma nekk ndaw bot ma yàgga seetlu sant yàlla dem na ba ma peresi mu suñu kuloo Mariama
xarit wooma yema wooma faale wooma tontu wooma lijjanti wooma yegulowma xanaa yërëm wooma xarit gudde nga tey fan lay fanaan maa ngi lay woo yow ne ma naan bësëk na waay maa ngi ci lëndëm soxla naa la fii mel ni dama wan ma sa xarit ma wax la ki nga doon yow yaa ma tere jàdd yoon xëccoo ma ci yoon bu bon ba may xëcc bon yow yaa ma tere jàdd su ma mënoona jël permission ci yàlla gisaat la même su benn bés la bu gën ki baax na tabe na yaatu am yërmande yof na jabir na ñëpp la boole yemma yaa ñu yar ñu ak ñu gar ñu xamal ñu xamal ñu gëdd yow yaay leer bi leeral àdduna leer bu leeral àdduna jub buur yeeg li ngeen yow mi gaynde nga yow mi gaynde nga xare yow yaay jàmbaar lambu ba musa bëre yow yaa ko daale sa jëf ko waay moom amul fe foog nu war a fi kentara man daf ma yee c'est in a land of Africa religious abon mothers like Whitney strong alone healing a dawn Fit Madiba Mandela by her side together they born brave like Kunta Martin Luther Kwame Nkrumah and Mukumba Kenneth Wakanda and Kenyatta Sa Dawda Kairaba Sa Maria Manning Wakagayi right now nyungi this morning Churchill mungi tachumbabi balde mungi video gayang enjoy are you ready for the classic are you ready for the classic are you ready for the classic 20 feet is going down Maria wakal guy man 25th lay amen Benjamin Hall Senegambia ticket for $100 Zero Bariul Nyole Nyuayale Classy Bere pare le nyonyi Classy Bere pare le nyonyi You happy enjoy it but extraordinary Leave my affair quality.
Oh, no, what the guy? No, I'm done. No, Yaga Nanyone, I go good. These are the good.
These are the real good.
No, these are the real man Gambian music legi jehala. Jel na ñi ñoo ma saf. So lu ñoo def moy nañ gëna ñu fessal ko on the 25th nañ gëna let everybody go out and support nañ gëna ñu jëna tickets yi ñu dem ñu support ñi. No, this is talent.
And li su len safut dama xamul lam wala ni saf.
Actually, for real.
Yeah. So just to remind you people Tobasi and Style tomorrow 7.0 Q City. Please be there 7 p.m. live.
All right. Thank you very much. Viewers, until we come here again next week, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.